And now, coming to you from the Pensado Media Center, powered by Westlake Pro.
One of the 50 most important people in EDM, that's what Rolling Stone says. We've got a brand new ITL. We are back, and you're at the place. It's Pensado's place.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for dropping by. Man, so much has happened since we saw you guys last. We missed you, we really missed you, but we had a lot of fun at NAMM. Are you quite over your NAMM experience yet, or are you still?
That's hard to say. We're just gonna move forward right through it, I'm not sure. But shall we get to
Let's do it.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Big ups to the fine folks at the following: the Blackbird Academy, Westlake Pro, Avid, Heaviosity, Groove 3, and Fab Factory. We got a great guest. We're going to get to it. I think we got a brand new ITL. You're okay, sir?
Yeah. A company of Soundways, they came up, our friend Gabri over there came up with a system that you really need to check out. It could change the future. It's called REN-M. I'm very, very strong on it.
Let's roll it.
One of my favorite cities in the world is Memphis, Tennessee. It gets a little disrespected when it comes to music. Memphis is the heart of just about everything cool that we know in music. There was a guy there named Chips Moment who made some incredible records back in the day. Great musicians. David Porter, one of my dear friends, lives there. It's just a great musical city. There's a cat down there that you guys met on the show one day. His company is Soundways, Gabri Waddell, and he's done something that I think we should all pay close attention to. In today's world, it's a little difficult to get credits, and this is a solution that I think could change all that. You're looking at it here on the screen. You put it on your stereo bus, you fill it out, you put all the information about the song, the assistants, tons of information. You can set up profiles, and that gives you shortcuts. Now, let's say you're working on the song and the song goes to another studio. Well, the gentleman, the engineer at the other studio, he opens up the session, sees REN-M, and then he adds his information. Then it goes to mastering, he opens it up, and then he puts his information in. Then you send it to the powers that be. They take out that information, and now we get our credits. So it's something that's very timely and a way for us to get the credit that we deserve. Let me tell you, credits are everything in our business. When you look at your heroes, the reason you know what they did is because they had credits, and so this is a solution for that. I hope it catches on. I hope we all use it. And this company also does Reveal and Low Leveler and AF Monitor, and check those out too. Those are good products. Hats off and a big thank you to Gabri for putting this together. I forgot to tell you, it's free. Check it out.
Our guest today is a producer, a turntablist, a businessman, but most importantly, he's from Montreal, Canada. We'll talk about that. Please welcome to the place, the one, the only A-Trak.
Hey,
A-Trak.
How are
Good
you?
to see you, buddy.
Hey guys.
So, Canada.
Yeah.
We just found
The
out.
land of the freeze.
Absolutely. I noticed periodically from being there, and I was there a long time ago.
Yeah.
There is a very significant number of Canadian musicians that learn their craft and then come to the U.S. and impact.
Yeah.
And they're bringing something. What do you think it is? Is it just a different approach to the music?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now it's getting interesting because the internet has, the whole global village thing. The internet has connected everyone so much that there's maybe a little bit less of a regional flavor, especially in the arts than there was before. But even when I was learning how to DJ, there was, I was influenced equally by East Coast DJs and West Coast DJs who had very different styles.
Yeah.
And my mission was to mesh those styles. So I think coming from Canada and being just close enough to the US where I could go and, take a trip to New York and see things myself, but also kind of just hang out in my parents' basement and, create my do my thing. Yeah. I saw firsthand for myself that gave me a bit of a different perspective. Maybe Canadians might be a little less angry. I don't know.
And was there a point
Different
then
sauce.
that the U.S. became a place to be to further your craft?
Yeah, or I would say to further my career in a sense. You know, not taking anything away from Canada. In fact, there are some things in Canada, like the grants that are available to artists that are incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah, if you're a musician, you know, living in Canada, the government will fund your music videos, will fund the production.
Right.
There was one project I did where the production and marketing of that project was funded by grants. So that's something I appreciate. But I think maybe on a sort of entrepreneurship level, there's a certain fire that I was finding a little bit more in my visits to the US. My brother moved to New York before I did. My brother, who's also known to musicians as Chromeo, as one half of Chromeo.
Absolutely.
But at the time, he was also just a PhD candidate who moved to New York to attend Columbia.
I'll be done.
So, you know, Montreal and New York are pretty close. I would go and visit him, or sometimes I'd go to New York for a gig. And in a weekend in New York, I would feel like I could do what I would do in a month in Montreal.
Right.
So after a while, I decided to start splitting my time. And once I set up shop there, I didn't really leave.
That was that. Got it.
Tell me about, well, first of all, congratulations on all the awards. I mean,
thanks so much.
I mean, at 15, you'd already won just about everything. And at 18, you had won everything. And you started out at a time when the world was a little more analog. The transition from analog to digital, was that fun for you?
Yeah.
Conscious, or did you?
Very conscious and very exciting. Yeah, like as you said, I think my career really straddled both sides of you know, the mediums. When I was learning how to DJ, and really I started with scratching. As you mentioned, I was winning these championships and battles, which is, you know, very much of the hip hop ethos.
You had speed.
Yes,
Yeah.
speed and you know, whatever, you know, agility and you got to think of original records too. But I was, you know, I started with the very technical side of it, and that was all on vinyl, of course. The battles that I entered were between '97 and 2000, and by the early 2000s, CDJ technology became a little better. And some of these vinyl emulation softwares like Serato and a few others started popping up. I would go to NAMM sometimes, you know, to do a little demo for a mixer company or a needle company. And I remember one year just being like, what's going on over there? What's this plugin that they have?
Right.
Serato was originally a plugin, and then it became a standalone program.
You were one of the first adopters of that.
Yeah, I was the first endorsee of Serato. The companies from New Zealand, they had some New Zealand locals, but I was the first DJ on an international scale that worked with them. You know, definitely was a pretty vocal proponent in getting other DJs to use it. But the thing that was interesting with that is, on the level of DJing, the transition from analog to digital was much deeper than simply and literally, you know, building a digital song library. It's not just that we had to rip our records or rip MP3s one way or another. The way that we thought about record selection changed, and access changed. You know, so although there's definitely a romance to the vinyl years where you had to hunt down a record like a rare
Dig in the crates.
dig in the crates like a rare artifact, and if you found that record, you were the only one or one of a few that had it. I'm still very fond of the current age we're in now, where I can make a demo or an edit or something in the afternoon and play it, you know, 5 minutes later at a gig. Or my friends can send me tracks that they just finished, and I can test them out and even give feedback on the mix. A friend will send a track and say, hey, what do you think of this one? I'll say, you know what, I'll drop it tonight. And then I'll write back and say, your kick's not sounding right, or something like that. But you test it in a set. And even just in terms of genre selection, and you know, I'm definitely in the family of DJing that's, you know, of the eclectic kind, and to be able to pick anything I wanted and flip it and reimagine it. That's been exciting to me.
When you're doing a gig and you have playlists available to you, are you adept enough to search for things you might not have heard of and just try to find something during the middle of a set and say, I just discovered that. Let me see if I want to work that.
I definitely I definitely improvise the song selection a lot. I would say at least half of my set is
that right?
improvised. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
But stuff you know.
Yeah, but I was gonna say like I can't really play something I don't have because
Sure.
the technology is not quite at the point where we can play something that's
That
in
you
the
can search for
streaming.
in the- yeah.
But that's probably just a year or two away.
I would think.
You know.
Yeah.
In fact, it's been announced that iTunes is going to discontinue the MP3 download or the AEC, whatever download store, to only be streamings. And a lot of DJs we're all asking ourselves, well, where are we going to buy music?
Right.
We're not playing off of streaming services in our sets just yet.
Right.
But
That's
yeah,
an interesting challenge.
I pull up records on the spot all the time when I'm playing.
Have you ever played a song that caused people to crash into each other?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Crash into each other, as in just mosh or dance, violently, or
No,
what do
I'm
you
thinking
mean?
the tempo was so bad and they start dancing and then they just fall and hit each other.
Oh,
He's a non-dancer, so it's a
well,
question.
you know the thing that's interesting is depending on
dancer?
yeah, I like that. Depending on the
Smoking. Very good.
I like that. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah.
Depending on the trends and even
out,
like
Michaela.
eras and vibes, sometimes people don't really literally dance
Right.
at shows anymore. Sometimes they jump. You know,
That's
sometimes
right.
like it's not literally a sort of like grooving dance thing
Right.
anymore. It's
self
more
expression.
yeah. It's just more primal than that sometimes.
So it's EPM now, not EDM.
Yeah, electronic primal music.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, we can run with that.
Do you still have? You've been doing this now for a couple of decades in
Yeah.
a number of ways, as a
Yeah.
businessman, as somebody, as a producer. Do you still like to do a set? Do you still like
Oh,
to get
yeah.
behind and do your thing?
That's an
Does that
understatement.
free you, or you can
Yeah.
just
It's more than I like it. Like that's the
you have to have it?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I feel the most, naturally in my element.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really exciting and fulfilling over the years to add bullet points to the multi-hyphenate
Sure, right.
description, and
Sure.
to take on more
Yeah.
more verticals and more tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And to go from a DJ to producer, record label guy, whatever, blogger, collaborator, all these things.
Yeah.
But all those other bullet points are possible because I'm a DJ.
Yeah. That's
And
your foundation.
yeah, and I definitely think that when I'm DJing is when I'm in my element the most.
And you've seen the technology change
Yeah.
dramatically.
And I'm for it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's interesting and funny sometimes is people see these videos of me scratching on vinyl records and they think that I'm a vinyl purist.
Right.
And I'll get fans sometimes at shows say like, yeah, vinyl. And I just say, hey, whatever you want to use is fine.
Right.
More than half my shows now are using digital technology
Sure.
too, or whether it be a CDJ connected to Serato or whatever it may be. I just find ways to use my skill set on these different platforms. And there was a sort of aha moment for me a few years ago. Because Serato allows you to use any kind of deck, whether it be a Technics turntable
Yep.
or USB controllers or whatever, to play off of a song library that's on your computer. And for many years, I was still using the Technics turntables with Serato, thinking that that's the equipment that I'm best at. And this technology just allows me to have access to all my music. But using turntables in live venues became harder and harder because literally most of these venues stopped calibrating their sound systems for turntables, and there would be such huge bass right under the stage. It would make everything vibrate. My needles would be flipping out. Yeah, and it just, half the time it wasn't possible. And also, I don't travel with my own turntables. They're on my rider, so I show up and the venue has to supply turntables.
Right.
And when I'm the only person that whole month asking for turntables, they're not in good condition.
Right.
So I started having a lot of my shows where I'd be troubleshooting as I was performing.
Oh, that sucks.
And I started thinking like, I don't want this crowd to watch me, literally troubleshoot, unplug a needle, check a contact,
Yeah, exactly.
this and that. I got to perform. I'm a showman.
Right.
I'm not just a DJ. I'm a showman. That's how I perform. So I started integrating some of the digital, versions of the technology into my sets, especially in venues where I don't have full control of the elements. And I remember thinking, like, say I'm a keyboard player, and I'm the type of keyboard player that's known to be kind of a whiz with analog synths. But say I have to go on the road and I start touring, and then half of my shows I gotta
Grand
pull out
piano.
the tools and fix my Moog or whatever it may be because it was checked in on
Not
airplane.
good.
Yeah, if I was that guy, I would need to know how to play just as well with some new model that's tried and tested in any kind of venue and just give a good show. And when it's a show where I have full control of all the elements, then I'll pull out the nice vintage piece. And that's the same way that I feel about vinyl versus CDJs. As long as, like, I feel like it's my responsibility as a scratch DJ to be able to be good on any equipment, on any version of the equipment.
CDJs gave you the kind of consistency.
Yeah,
that you
because
could
they're
make it.
sturdy. There's nothing.
Exactly.
They're just sturdier.
Oh, go ahead.
A while back, Deadmau5 was complaining that most DJs now just push buttons on their laptops.
I wrote an article about
When you use the word DJ, it's such a broad term now. What is a DJ? What I mean, I'm not seeing you live, but on your videos, the show that you put on, nobody scratches as good as you. I've never seen anybody scratch and you got the oars to prove it.
Thanks.
And I find that entertaining. But is that a DJ? Waka
doesn't
waka
have
waka
to be.
waka, or
It
is
doesn't
it?
have to be.
Is a DJ? Was Mouse right? I mean,
He's a bit of a contrarian, and he's probably just trying to make a point, and I appreciate the point he was making, to some extent. But your question about what is a DJ is really dead on, and it's never just meant one thing, right? And when I was starting to DJ in the mid '90s, I remember. Once I started getting a bit of notice for what I was doing, there'd be like a family event, maybe like Hanukkah or something, right? And then my mom would say, "Tell your aunt what you're doing. I'm a DJ now." And then the auntie would say, "Oh, on what radio station?" Right?
Yeah.
Thinking that I'm like a speaking host.
Right.
which would be an MC.
Yeah, but on the radio sometimes that could be a DJ too. So 20 years ago, DJ was one thing, or it was a few different things. Now it's a few different other things. The context to explain Deadmau5's remark is that with the explosion of EDM, DJs and producers became synonymous.
Gotcha.
So producers kind of started leading the way because actual tracks became so popular that there was demands for them to perform at festivals or at shows. So if an electronic producer has a popular track and he or she gets booked, they'll do a DJ set. That's the natural thing that happens.
Right.
But you end up with producers who get booked to play a DJ set. And conversely, the other way around, nowadays DJs are expected to also produce, right? So there's a blurring of the lines between the DJ and the producer. It's essentially the same thing. And when EDM became a phenomenon the way it's been in America since maybe 2010 or 11, the producer side of it became so predominant. The majority of the DJs that you can see, at any given club or festival, tend to be producers who often have a pre-planned set and who really aren't doing all that much up there. And I remember Deadmau5 also saying in that same sort of statement that anybody can beat match and that's not hard. So he was kind of dismissing DJing as this easy thing. DJing to me is primarily selection, and being a good DJ is finding a balance between record selection, which is not just what you play, but when you play.
Absolutely.
Right? Not just simply playing this song, but playing this song after that song, as the crowd is at their peak or not. Yeah, exactly. It's
Being
the flow.
able to read the crowd.
Yeah, it's the selection, and the other half of it is the technical ability. I happen to be from a branch of DJing that's as technical as it can get.
And I think there's a third part, but I'll go to that in a second.
Sure, yeah. But I was just going to say that my particularly technical approach to DJing, with a lot of scratching and beat juggling and this
But
and
that's
that,
kind of
is
going
not-
out, isn't it? I mean, it's
You see less of it, and I was going to say I don't expect that from every DJ. A lot of my favorite DJs don't scratch or barely scratch. I really get inspired by DJs whose style is the complete opposite of me, because they make me completely rethink my style. They make me think, oh wow, I could have done it like that.
Well, that's the third part that I was going to allude to. because you'd mentioned something earlier that sort of speaks to my heart and the things that turn me on, which is you're a showman.
Yeah.
And when you're a showman, you also think about other elements have to do with you. Are you utilizing lights? What are you doing behind the board?
Yes.
What makes your show a show? So
Yeah.
you've got the technical ability,
Yeah.
you got the song selection,
Yeah.
and then your natural showmanship.
And even that's not necessary for to be a DJ. You know,
That's right.
the founding fathers of DJs were in a dark booth in the corner of
That's
the
right.
club,
You never even saw them.
and everyone reveres them, and
That's
no one ever
true.
stopped revering that.
Right.
As the DJs became superstars themselves, there started being demand for the DJ to be on the main stage.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's not the most necessary thing. And as I was saying a few minutes ago, the flip side of putting a DJ on the stage is people don't even really dance the same way anymore.
Right.
Because they just look at the DJ, they stare and they jump.
Right.
But a lot of us miss the dancing part. So most DJs will, at least once in a while, go do a show in a club that's a lot more bare bones and, you know, ask to not be the center of attention at least once in a while and just
Let
get
the
the
music
groove
do the
going.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
get people dancing for hours.
Your mindset, does it switch when you're now producing? You're in a studio, you've got an artist, you're making music and so
Yeah.
forth. That's sometimes a more singular or less people approach. Does that change the way you sort of think about doing things and your
Yeah.
technical performance and that
Yes.
stuff?
I think the more I've taken on different types of projects, and even just the more I've grown into the role of producer while still DJing all the time, each one informs the other in a lot of ways. My DJing definitely informs my production. You know, the obvious way to explain that is just like, hey, DJs know what works well in the club. So there's a bit of that, but there's even on an almost unconscious level, you know, some of the programming that I do. If I'm chopping up a sound, I'll listen. My friends will say that I make it sound like it's a scratch. I don't even realize it, but my ear is so
Just tuned that way.
accustomed to sound manipulation and certain patterns. Scratching is all about rhythmic patterns and combinations. There's a bit of that. But the thing that's been interesting for me in recent years is I feel like I've learned how to produce my scratching. So there's a lot of full circle things going on where I started as a DJ and you know, scratching is like jazz improvisation, and you just want to go.
True, isn't it?
I could scratch for hours.
Right.
Not every crowd wants to hear that.
Right.
So then you start performing, and then you start building up a sense of how much is too much.
Right.
And then you learn how to sort of dose that
Yeah.
and keep it exciting for the crowd, but not get too self-indulgent, right? And then I got into production, and then I sort of felt I went back into devoting time to coming up with new tricks and routines with my turntablism stuff in recent years, and I feel like I'm using my producer ear more. You know, because as a young teen, as I was coming up with the most technical routines that I can come up with to try to win these battles, the only factor was how impressive is it
Right.
to an educated audience.
Right.
And the more time goes by,
different
the more
now.
I'm not playing for a scratch-educated audience. I'm playing for audiences that may have never heard this. So I have to put my producer hat on and think,
And when you're
is this
producing,
enjoyable?
You're servicing the song, you're servicing
Yes.
the artist. There's
Yeah.
a lot. There's a different level of commitment. to
Also,
things.
too, I'm stating the obvious. I apologize for that. But in a live venue, they're going to hear the song one time, and you have to make them like it with one listen. Whereas
Yeah.
in a radio format or a streaming format, you've got multiple listens that you
That's
can
true.
have an advantage, and then so you've got to reach them early within the first couple of bars there. But in the live venue, you got 15 minutes if you want it, 10 minutes to play the song and,
Yeah.
and get them going.
Yeah.
How's that translated into your production chops? Are you
Well, on a few levels, and even to touch on what you were just saying in terms of like having people's captive attention for a little bit longer, I have one foot in hip hop and one foot in electronic
Yeah, I was
music,
gonna
right?
ask
Like
you
that's
that.
kind of been the defining thing for me for a long time.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest differences between DJing in those two genres is when you're playing hip hop, most of the time you're playing songs that the crowd knows. And it's about choosing within that subset of songs that they'll know, ones that they'll like, but in a surprising way or in an
Right.
original way.
Right.
And once in a while, you can sneak in something that they don't know. In electronic music, for the most part, it doesn't matter. It's a lot more. You're the maestro of the energy.
Yeah.
Right,
Ooh,
and you're
that's a
just
great
it's
way to put
tension
it.
and release,
That's
tension
a
and
good point.
release,
Great way to put
and
it, too.
yeah, and it's fun because you start looking at your records as tools for either tension or release, and you know there's tracks that I play that you know for the first 30 seconds or minute the crowd might not realize what that track is supposed to be doing, but if I'm controlling the energy right and I just let maybe it's an unconventional build up or
Sure.
something about the frequencies that just starts building up attention, you know, within 2-3 minutes they might be losing their minds.
Right.
And it's fun to use the duration of a track. There's a few tracks that I play where there's no kick drum at all, or the drums never come in, and it's a mind trick because the crowd thinks
They're
the kick drum.
waiting for it.
Yeah, they're
Yeah, yeah.
waiting for it, and as they're waiting for it, they realizing that they might never get it,
Right,
and then they go crazy because they're.
That's sacrilege. I mean, come on, man.
it's
Kick
fun.
drums, you gotta have a kick drum, man.
But again, that's just you got.
I would walk out. I would just
Well,
walk out. I gotta have
I'd
a
give you
kick
your money
drum.
back.
I made a living with kick drums. I gotta have a kick drum.
But of course, I'm a hip hop guy and a house music guy. The kick drum is the foundation. So when you allow yourself to play that track that never gives them the kick drum for 4 minutes, you feel like you just did the impossible.
That's
You
true.
just start feeling like, wow, I
And it sets
really
up the
did
next,
that.
sets up the next song.
Yeah, it's
One of
fun.
the things that I love about what you do, particularly on Ride For Me, your new single, and then on Believe, is you've got this hip hop side of you, but you'll give the listener these almost ephemeral keyboard parts that are delicate and pretty, and like on Believe. The video where you showed how you construct it's got little belly sounds. Then you got
Yep.
these badass drums, and
Yeah.
and you're just not afraid to do something like that, which I think is an asset in the world today. That juxtaposition of those beautiful little sounds against some hard ass drums, your ear is drawn to that.
100%.
And I like it. I like
Thanks.
it.
No, I appreciate that, and I think a lot of the music that I've always been a fan of has those contrasts, right? And growing up a hip hop kid, hard knocking drums are the backbone.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, it's fun to create a track where there's some sort of, dreamy, vibey kind of, melodic zone in the music, as long
Contrasted
as
with a riot.
yeah, as long as the kick just breaks
in
your
murder
guts or
stuff.
something. Yeah, and a lot of the producers that I've always been a fan of have had those contrasts.
Who are
And,
they? Who are those producers?
I mean, when you tell me hard drums and dreamy melodies, I think of Jay Dilla. I think Jay Dilla or Premier.
Premiere.
Yeah, the greatest. But Dilla, I think, always had this sort of eeriness to his beats with the knockingest drums you could imagine. Or on the house side, maybe someone like Switch. There's producers like that just have these contrasts. The same way that even in a sort of mix setting, I love tracks where some elements are completely dry and some elements are wet, and it's those decisions. I always think that producing and mixing boils down to decisions, and it's you as the producer or mixer or whatever get to express your tastes and your ideas with those decisions.
Your decisions. And
Yeah.
So, question along that paradigm: how much, if any, does songwriting from you come into play to your production? Or are you just working on songs that are presented to you? And how does that inform you? And the second question, which just went out of my head,
I remember what it was.
Oh, what was it?
Are you still doing Beats Radio?
Yes.
Okay. There you go, Herb.
You know Cosign?
Sorry.
You know Cosign? He
Cosign?
does- Yeah.
No.
Oh, I should introduce you to him. He does Beats Radio too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So my show with Beats is sort of seasonal. So ever since I started, there's a few months where it's on, a few months where it's
Got
off.
it.
So
Got
Okay,
it.
number
Yeah.
one.
So you're asking how much songwriting?
Yeah,
does the songwriting
because if you're
play into-
producing, you're
Yeah.
producing something, and
Yes.
probably with an artist,
So,
and so
yeah, one of the great lessons for me as I went more and more into production was to accept my limitations. You know, and
that's true in life.
yes.
It's hard.
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah, it's hard. I'm stubborn, and I like to know how to do everything, but there's certain things that I'm not as good at. You know, and I definitely still believe that I'm a DJ who got into producing, who got into remixing, who got into running a label, all these other things. And when I was learning how to produce, at first I really wanted to do everything myself. And so my early remixes, early productions, I would do the full track, mix, try to master, or sometimes yes, sometimes no, but at least until the mix, I would really do everything myself. But I'm slow. I'm still slow in the studio. I would drive people crazy. I mean, by the way, even now today, I'm a month and a half late delivering a remix. Sometimes I'm very late delivering things because I stubbornly want to do it my way or myself.
Right.
And, you know, again, I'm in my element when I'm DJing. When I'm producing, I'm still trying to get the ideas out of my head, and sometimes there's roadblocks.
And that was the second question, which was in the partitioning of all the things that happen when you're producing something.
Yeah.
Do you have a mixer you go to? Or
So sometimes, yeah. I mean, so I work on so many different kinds of tracks,
Right.
and I think part of that is because I'm kind of an eclectic DJ. I have so many different ideas of, you know, I want to make a track like this, I want to make a track like that. Some of it could range from techno to underground hip hop. And depending on what the song is, sometimes I work with collaborators.
Yep.
Sometimes I do all of it myself. You mentioned your first question was about songwriting. I don't see myself as a songwriter, at least not traditionally. I have ideas about songwriting, but I definitely, you know, certain songs like Push or We All Fall Down, some of my like soulful house records, Parallel Lines, those are tracks where I had someone help me lay down the chord idea. I'm not very good with chords, but I can sit with someone and say, either I'll sing it out or as they're playing, I'll say that part, but voice it a little differently, or that part,
Right.
but let's do the cadence different. And then once I have it down, I can build around it. So I do work with people who help me get, especially the chord work down. I don't know how to write a top line, but the idea of the song is mine, and it starts with my, you know, I might start with a reference, someone might help me get some of the musicality down, and then I still feel like I'm a remixer, first and foremost in the studio.
Which, by the way, is, I didn't mean to cut you off, sorry.
No problem.
Is the way traditional is sort of a weird word, but there was a time in history where the producer
100%.
did that.
In
'Cause
the
it was
rock
really-
sense, that's
it was
what a producer
directing.
is. Yeah.
That's what Quincy Jones did. You know,
Yeah.
lots of people did. They
Yeah.
directed and said, "Oh, let me give you that part." If
Yeah.
I could tell you how many label meetings I've been in as an executive or as a manager, where the head of A&R, the head of the label said, "You know, let's take that record, flip it like this,
Of course.
do that," and give sort of this instructive thing to the producer, and they would go out and do that flip.
That's how I
So
got my start with my whole career, thanks to her, was remixes. My first 4 or 5 big...
I did nothing but answer the phone. You did
No,
the
that's
work.
not true. Herb introduced me to the person that ultimately gave me my first big hit out here was a remix. It was called "Do Me Baby" by Belle Biv DeVoe, and then
Of
I
course,
did
amazing.
"Thought It Was Me" with Wolf and Epic.
You white hip hoppers.
Yep.
I'm not a hip hopper. I'm a guest in that world.
Well, I think we all
I
are.
got creamed for those remixes, but that's what I wanted to hear. But
The
Yeah.
business side,
Yeah.
too. Part of another part of your brain that was
Yeah.
artist development, seeing what happens, growing that kind of business. 'Cause
Again, I
did
think
that
it all
too.
boils down to vision, right?
Yeah.
And so when I'm working on a song and I'm trying to get the best performance out of, maybe the best vocal down, right? Because a lot of times if I am working with a vocalist, I'm looking for, you know, the best vocal I can get out of them, and then I take my time reproducing the track after. Sometimes I'll just give that vocalist a skeleton of the track, whichever version I think they'll be most comfortable on. So if I'm recording a singer, I might just give them a chord progression with a steady kick drum. And I feel like that's where a lot of vocal writers or singers will be will feel most free to do their thing vocally. If I'm working with a rapper, there's songs that I've put out that sound kind of electronic influenced or wild, but I didn't record them over that track. I would record a rapper over a track that sounds like the rest of their material, so they're in their comfort zone. And that's where I feel like I'm a remixer, because I'll grab the idea of the song and the sort of DNA of the song and that vocal more than anything, and then I go and rearrange everything afterwards.
You like to grab people early in the song. I can feel you trying to get my attention real early. And you do that with really, really cool instrumental melodies. Why can't you convert those instrumental melodies into lyric melodies?
I don't know if maybe I'm just not thinking about it that way, or maybe I should do more of that too. I still feel like a lot of what I do in production is accidents. I do like to put little ear candy in the beginning of a song. Sometimes it's little counterpoint top melodies in the beginning, because those just tickle the ear a certain way.
They're memorable.
Yeah, and then I introduce the vocal. And other parts, I'll process a vocal, maybe pitch it up, run it through some distortion and other effects, and have that be a sort of counterpoint melody in the beginning of the song before the more natural vocal comes in. It varies. I mean, the reality is I don't have a formula, and maybe that's, I always say I'm slow when I produce. Sometimes I wish I had a formula.
Well, let's do batter's box. This is going to be unique because Herb promised me I would win this one.
Oh.
Well, let me get out of the way.
Competitive.
All right, you're Canadian.
So wait, how do you win? How do you win or lose?
I have no idea, but I lose them all. I haven't won one yet. This could be the day, right, Herb?
Here we go.
Right, Herb?
Yeah, here we go.
No, it ain't gonna be.
Herb's not picking favorites today.
Ableton
Canadian.
Live.
Creativity.
Needles.
Dust.
Reverb.
Dry wet.
Compression.
Punch.
He's been practicing, Herb.
He's Canadian.
I'm gonna lose. Beatport.
Does it still exist?
Wow.
Answer.
Kid Cudi.
Connection.
Favorite synth, virtual.
Serum.
Steve. Low end.
Bouncy.
If your studio caught fire, what one piece of gear would you try to rescue first?
I'm not attached to any gear. I would go for something with emotional value. Like I have gold turntables from winning my first championship. They're in storage though, but that's the kind of thing
Oh, that's
I'd
cool.
go for. It's emotional. It's all the ideas are in the head.
So I won, right?
Well, you showed well. Look, man, you got a combination of elements here. You got Canadian, Jewish, winning.
He was
There's
fast
some great
too.
athletes
I get to.
in that box.
I'll give it to
But
you.
you know what's funny? I'm really interested in let me preface that by saying I'm a terrible athlete. I've never played a sport in my life. I'm no good. But I'm fascinated with athletes because I'm fascinated with the mental game that comes with it. And I'm a competitor. I performed in all these battles where, it's similar to
The mentality is no different.
Olympic athletes. Yeah, you prepare for months and months and months,
No different.
and then you have to learn how to tune out the crowd to a certain extent, but still interact with them and get it right on that one shot that you have.
Mentality
And
is
it's
no
such a mental game.
Dave, man, listen, first of all, thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you so
Canada,
much.
Our home and native
Yes,
land.
yes.
True native sons, all that
Appreciate
stuff.
that.
Take us home, man.
I'm trying to formulate a thought here, Herb. Maybe you can help me. When I was coming up musically, I was impressed by musicians who spent hours and years and dozens of years and decades perfecting a craft and then playing together. And I thought that's what music was.
Yeah.
And then as we went into the 80s, I was conflicted because I could make a record without a drummer. I could make a record without a string section.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe that's a cheap way to make records. And then I realized maybe it's the meal that's important, not the chef that made it and what stove he used to cook with and where he used an electric knife or a regular knife.
Yeah.
And I think in preparing for this show, there's so many ways to create music, and I think they're all valid. And sometimes music is created in third world countries with non-traditional instruments. That's just as valid as a concert by musicians that practice all their life. And I think we need, as people that appreciate music, to not rely so much on how it was made, but did we like it? Did it move us? Did it do something to us that only music can do? And that source can come from anywhere. And I don't know where I'm going with this, so help me real quick.
You know, I was watching you go off the cliff, trying to figure out how to save you.
I run into people that still think that certain forms of music are not music because they weren't created with a band or they weren't created with real instruments. And I think that's completely wrong. And it's 2000.
Things are evolving. And I think you can't worry about those. Some get on the train, some don't.
Yeah.
And you just move forward. And for the first time, particularly for guys who've been around as long as we have, we're in a technical, in an industrial revolution where the technology is not going to change. Other revolutions went to a point and then they settled. It's not going to settle. It's always going to be disruptive.
Well,
it's always going to change.
I got one for you. There's an artist that's a hologram that has hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers. It's not even a real artist.
Say good night.
Good night.
See you guys. Peace.